This is our time, the main story at this hour. I'm Yulia Gorovaya in the studio. Hello. Russia launched 45 missiles and over 500 drones at Ukraine last night. This was reported by the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The defenders of Ukraine's skies managed to neutralize 510 drones of various types, as well as 6 ballistic and 32 cruise missiles. Strikes were recorded at several locations, and in 21 more places, debris from downed aerial targets fell. On the night of August 30th, more than 24 missiles and about 40 attack drones also targeted Dnipro and the Dnipropetrovsk region. There, the Russian army used cruise and ballistic missiles. Civilian infrastructure, a shopping center, and stores were damaged. One private house burned down completely. The owner survived because he had left home the day before. Information about casualties is still being clarified. All necessary services are still working at the scene.
It was incredibly loud. From about 2 in the morning until 4, it was really loud. People wrote that shahids and ballistic missiles were flying. It was very loud. My mom is deaf, and even she woke up.
We probably woke up around 3 in the morning. It was loud, of course. My husband is still sick. He started having panic attacks. It's really high. Very. I just can't say anything else right now.
But one person died, and another 28 were injured in Zaporizhzhia. Russian forces fired 7 rockets and 6 drones at the city. 14 apartment buildings and more than 40 private homes were destroyed or damaged. Oblenergo's equipment was also affected by the damage. As a result, one of the districts in Zaporizhzhia was left without electricity. According to the regional military administration, that's currently 25,000 subscribers. Restoration work is ongoing. They plan to finish it by the end of the day.
Our doors and windows were blown out, all the windows, right? The kitchen, the bedroom, everything was blown out. My little dog saved my life. I managed to run away in time, otherwise. He heard it and saved me. I was thinking, what does he want? He kept jumping at the window over and over. And I heard it, I said, move away quickly. Everyone had just moved away. We barely managed to hide a little in the hallway. It just tore everything apart.
As of today, the massive shelling of Ukraine has already been addressed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. He said that overnight Russia struck Volyn, Donetsk, Zhytomyr, and 11 other regions. It was mainly civilian infrastructure that was affected. The head of the Ukrainian state called on the international community to move from words to action and finally force Russia to make peace.
The time allocated for preparing the Leaders' Summit was used by Moscow to prepare new massive strikes. The only way to reopen the window of opportunity for diplomacy is through tough tariffs against everyone who funds the Russian army, and effective sanctions against Moscow itself, banking and energy sanctions. This war will not end because of political statements. Real steps are needed. We are waiting for action from America, Europe, and the whole world. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Last night, Ukraine's defense forces struck 2 Russian oil refineries inside Russia. These were the Krasnodar and Syzran refineries. This was confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Local residents reported dozens of explosions and air defense activity. Regional authorities also confirmed the strikes on the oil refineries. Large-scale fires broke out at the sites. It's also worth noting that the Krasnodar refinery produces about 3 million tons of petroleum products per year. These include gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel. It plays an active role in supplying the armed forces of the Russian Federation. In addition to aviation and diesel fuel, the Syzran refinery also produces kerosene, fuel oil, and bitumen. A strike on this facility will undermine the offensive potential of the Russian invaders. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine emphasized. Ukraine will emerge from this war as the victor. This was stated by the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, in an interview with the American TV channel Newsmax. He called on Western countries to put pressure on Russia and finally force it to come to the negotiating table.
Now the whole world recognizes that Ukrainians are among the best fighters in the world. Make Russia sit down at the negotiating table, and you will see that we will also be winners in negotiations, because we are strong, and we seek only a just and lasting peace. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, on the air of Newsmax TV channel.
If Putin continues to avoid meeting with Zelenskyy, the United States must respond. This was stated by French President Emmanuel Macron following a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. According to Macron, if by September 1st the details of high-level negotiations between Moscow and Kiev are not agreed upon, this should not go unanswered.
We will communicate with President Trump, and if next week we have to state that, once again, after months of unfulfilled promises, nothing has happened, we will clearly call for the introduction of primary and secondary sanctions. Emmanuel Macron, President of France.
Russia will suffer the most from U.S. secondary sanctions. This was stated by the head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, ahead of the informal meeting of EU defense ministers in Copenhagen. European Union countries are working on the next 19th package of sanctions against the Russian Federation. There are several options on the table, Kallas noted. Earlier, Kiev submitted its proposals for the new list of EU restrictive measures to Brussels. Kristina Dombrovskaya will tell you more details.
The new 19th package of European Union sanctions against Russia may include restrictions on Russian energy and financial services. This was reported by the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas. Among other things, the European Union is considering the possibility of introducing secondary sanctions to prevent third countries from helping the Russian Federation circumvent the restrictions already in place. Kallas added that discussions are ongoing.
The main topic for us is Russia's war against Ukraine. We have witnessed massive strikes on Kiev. In addition, a European delegation was attacked. Fortunately, no one was physically harmed, but still, what I mean is that these attacks show that Putin is simply mocking any peace efforts. That's why we need to increase the pressure on Russia. And that's really what they understand, pressure.
The European Commission has confirmed a new wave of sanctions against Russia after the massive attack on Kiev on the night of August 28th.
These attacks by Russia on the civilian population, and this is just one of many we've seen in other parts of Ukraine as well, are absolutely unacceptable. They in no way diminish the European Union's resolve to support Ukraine. Our support, as always, is unwavering, and Russia's threats, including strikes on our facilities, will in no way change our commitment to support Ukraine so that it remains in a strong position now and in the future.
In connection with the 19th package of restrictions, Brussels will pay special attention to the strategic use of windfall profits from frozen Russian assets, according to the European Commission. As Politico reports, the EU is developing a plan to transfer nearly 200 billion euros of bloc Russian funds for the reconstruction of Ukraine after the war ends. However, this option does not involve the immediate confiscation of assets, particularly due to financial and legal considerations. Brussels is assessing whether European capitals are willing to transfer these assets into riskier investments that could generate more profit for Ukraine and increase pressure on Russia, which refuses to stop the fighting. Supporters of this plan also see it as a step toward the potential seizure of assets and their transfer to Ukraine as punishment for Russia's refusal to pay post-war compensation. From a Politico publication, citing European diplomats, the Baltic countries have long insisted that the EU fully confiscate these assets. Within the Commission, this idea is being promoted by Latvian Economy Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis and EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, according to Politico. As a compromise, the G7 countries agreed in 2024 to allocate a total of 45 billion euros in profits from frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. The new plan will be discussed for the first time by the EU foreign ministers on August 30th in Copenhagen.
In the near future, we will present our 19th package of tough sanctions. At the same time, we are advancing work on freezing Russian assets to support Ukraine's defense and recovery.
In May 2025, the European Union officially agreed to allocate nearly 2 billion euros in military aid to Ukraine. The funds will be provided from the income generated by frozen Russian assets through the European Peace Facility. Already in June, the leaders of the G7 countries agreed to allocate 50 billion from the proceeds of blocked Russian assets to Kiev. As part of the new Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration (ERA) initiative, as announced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, Ukraine will be able to receive these funds during 2025. Kristina Dombrovskaya for Freedom TV channel.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.